I believe that we will always work so hard to ensure that women are given their rightful places, no one discriminates against them, and no one speaks negatively about them. And I wish us well. Thank you, Jisra. Thank you, Dewa, for organizing this program. I pray in my heart that the essence and the purpose for this program will be achieved to the glory of God Almighty and for the benefit of humanity. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so very much, sir. So we also recognize the presence of any other person who is here and his name has not been provided. We would actually do that as soon as that is given to us. But then permit me to make introduction of the Assistant Commandant of Corps, Mrs. Busola Jibowu, representing NSCDC Kaduna. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right, so still acting within the circumference of power conferred on the moderator, I want to please plead that we would have a bridge on the agenda. It's actually time for tea break, but then I plead that we would want to have the first panel session. Then the tea break will come after the first panel. This is because of the season experts that we have, you know, because we have few of them in the state. So their attention is mostly needed everywhere. So and it's important that we are able to tap from their wealth of experiences before they would also go elsewhere to bless them with the knowledge that God has bestowed upon them. So I would actually invite my colleague. All right. Before that, may I please recognize the presence of the Acting Director, Ministry of Justice, representing the Commissioner, Ministry of Justice, in person of Hajia Binta Baba. Please let's put our hands together for Hajia Binta. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Mr. Musbau, at this juncture, we would want to have the first panel, which will be moderated by my colleague in person of Mr. Mukhtar Musbau Ashu. And I would, on this note, hand over the mic to him while he takes up the panel session from here. But please, before then, are we in agreement that we are skipping the tea break for the panel so that we're in a democratic system, so it doesn't portray that I am being autocratic? Silence means a yes. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you very much, Mubarak. Special guest, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. At this point, we're going to go straight into the first panel discussion. We're going to be discussing the approaches to strengthening legal protections for women's rights in the context of freedom of religion and belief. Now, I'll have the honor of moderating this panel, and with me on the panel, we'll have stakeholders from the legal practitioners, from the women's advocates, from policymakers, from civil society organizations, and then from the religious leaders. Now, to begin with, I would like to first humbly invite our mother, as my co-moderator has said, Prof. Hawa Evelyn Yusuf, to please take her seat on the panel. Please put your hands together for Prof. Hawa as she walks to the panel. Right behind her, I would like to also invite our mother, also Hajia Khadija Gambo Hawaja, the permanent secretary. Permanent Commissioner, sorry. Sahabila, please, if we can have. No, there isn't, man. Yes, 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 yes. Women supporting women. Yeah. Thank you. Please put your hands together for Hajia Khadija Gambo Hawa, the Permanent Commissioner, Kaduna Peace Commission. I would also like to invite Dr. Aisha Abdul Salam, who is a lecturer from the Nigerian Defense Academy, to please take her seat on the panel. With her is Barrister Comfort Usman Kariku, who is a legal practitioner. Please put your hands together. I would also like to invite Malam Barrister Adam Muhammad Hassan to please take his seat. Please put your hands together for. With them also we have, from the CSO, we have Taida Leo. Please put your hands together for Taida Leo as she walks to the panel. And from the Bangara Adini, we have Malam Barrister. Okay, we have Hassan there. Now we also have Dr. Caleb Bawa Maaji to please be with the group on the panel discussion. Please put your hands together for the Khan chairman as he walks to the podium. Good afternoon. My name is Musbahu Mukhtar Ashu, and I'll be moderating this panel. Just a reminder of what we'll be discussing on. We'll be talking about the approaches of strengthening legal protections for women's rights in the context of freedom of religion and belief. And like I said, this panel is a composition of experts from different fields. We have policymakers, we have from the legal practitioners, we have the women advocates, we also have from the religious leaders. To begin my question, I think I'm going to go first to the policymakers. Okay. Apologies, I've been informed that we are not gender biased there, so we'll require a shuffle of the sitting arrangements. If you'll be so kind, please, and pardon us for the inconvenience, please. So if we can just switch, President maybe switch, or Malang to switch your. Okay, please, if we can have Prof, please, if you can. Yes, please. Yai? Kada ake karan mu ne yayi? Right. Now?
You're trying to balance. If you're trying to balance it, you should have done the balancing in the composition.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
It's not about the physical arrangement.
Yeah, it's
about the composition, so we are all good.
We're fine, sir. I think we're good. Okay. Can we proceed? Apologies for the brief interruption. Professor, you've walked around. Okay. Thank you. Professor Hawau, you've been around policy making around gender, particularly where it concerns women. And from my experience, I've seen you on the field, and I've seen how tenacious you can be when it comes to advocating for this policy that will favor, so also grants those freedoms and privileges to women. Now, I would like to ask what policies can be implemented to address gender inequality in religious communities without infringing on the freedom of religion and beliefs?
Good morning once again. I like to, first of all, disabuse our mind that rights should be seen as privileges, because in your statement just now you said rights and privileges. I mean, a human being is a human being, whether you are a man or a woman. And one thing I have loved about our religions generally is that religion, in a lot of cases, does not say, "O ye women," or "O ye men." It is always, "O ye who believe." That alone is one aspect of religion that has been able to tell you that human beings are one and the same. Now, it's not a question of equality. A man and a woman can never be equal. It's a case of equity. It's the case of giving to God what is God's and to Caesar what is Caesar's. And the scriptures are very clear on this. But the patriarchal nature that was tailored at the beginning of the journey is what has brought us where we are today. And that is why I keep asking, who wrote the scriptures? Who interprets the scriptures? How come it has become a case of, let's just give them these privileges? When it is very clear in the Bible says, O ye husbands, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church. And the injunction for the woman is, submit to your husbands. To your husbands. Submission is not slavery. Submission is not belittlement. That when you are asked to love somebody, even as Christ loves the church, what it simply means is that you are not supposed to think of that person first, because that's what Christ did for us. Right? And then the Quran also has its own part of this injunction that stipulates the fact that you should treat them well. This could actually be even drawn from Surah An-Nisa when it talks about marriage, because the first thing that will be used to suppress a woman is to tell her that, look, I have a right to fall. You cannot deter that. But if you look at it, the way it was stated in Surah An-Nisa from verse 4, it says, go ye marry them orphans in twos, in threes, or in fours. It didn't stop there. It says, but where ye cannot be just, marry ye but one. For, it didn't stop there. For only Allah your God is just. So from there, you can make your own interpretations. I am not a cleric. I don't understand it. But at least I know what I need to survive as a woman. Isn't it? So, policies are drawn without the input of all. When the decisions are being taken, the women are not there. It is always one-sided. So, what has gone into the laws of the land, the codified laws, be it the penal code, be it the penal code, have been structured in such a way that a woman is seen as inferior and of no value. To the extent that you are being made to believe that even the religion says, if you claim you have been raped, you must provide 4 witnesses. Hello? And so when you have been raped and you report to the police officer, Oga Madam, Shonma, the first thing they tell you is that, what is your evidence? You get what I mean? So even in terms of the laws, so-called laws of the land, you have been made to be seen as not deserving any right. So we need to begin to change the narratives by relooking our laws. And that's why it bleeds my heart. After how many years of fighting and agitation for the domestication and implementation of the VAB law, all of a sudden, some people are already clamoring for its repeal. Why? Because it gives the opportunity for a woman to be able to report. It gives the opportunity for us to be able to prosecute defilers. I think the VAB law is one good thing that has ever happened to humanity. I'm not talking about Nigeria. It's an international law. But how come we in Nigeria, all of a sudden, within how many months of adoption, we are already talking about repeal? Because this law says you cannot abandon your wife and children. If you abandon your wife and children, then there is a penalty for it. Because this law says you cannot just beat your wife and get away with it. Because this law says if you cover up somebody who has beaten his wife, you are seen as a perpetrator. Hello? I am trying to talk around the VAP law without necessarily having to start listing what you can find there. So what is wrong with that law that it needs a repeal? Meanwhile, the law that says you must show me that you were I mean, and fortunately for religion forbids all these misdeeds. Religion does not allow you to abandon your wife. Religion does not allow you to beat your wife. At times when I look at that aspect of the Islamic religion that speaks about how you reprimand your wife, what it says is that you first of all tell her, or you give her some space. Hello? You know, when you are in love with somebody and that person decides to give you space and refuse to interact with you, your brain resets, isn't it? But when you start to beat that person, then that person becomes endangered and possibly may retaliate. And now, and the highest they say you should do is to pull your garment. Babamu, yanzu aka ce ka dibi bakin babban riganka kai man duka zai kama wuyanka, which then means that you're not even allowed to take a large portion. And so by the time you do this to me, this is more of an affectionate way of correcting me. But they will tell you, those who interpret it will now tell you that the fact that they say I can do this means that I can beat you. And so we beat up our wives and hide under the guise of religion. I think there's a way we can do our laws without necessarily destroying the tenets of religion. If and only if those who interpret religion begin to interpret religion the way it is and not bring into it our own personal feelings. The majority of what we get on the podium, on the on the pulpit, thank you, Reverend Sir. Majority of what we hear on the pulpit, whether in the mosque or in the church, is usually what the person speaking wants you to believe. Not necessarily what the Bible or the Quran says, or what the Hadith stipulates. So by the time we begin to go back to our religion, in the real sense of it, I tell you, this discrimination for women will stop. Because I keep saying it that I'm the only person who is privileged to be a Christian. That's why I am Hawau Evelyn Yusuf. And with that privilege, I am able to dance to Christianity and dance to Islam. And it gives me double advantage because it makes me as a woman know better my rights. Because now I know that nobody should beat me up. The Bible does not accept it. The Quran does not accept it. Why is there a specific verse in the Bible that says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains, thank you.
It's like we all know the verse, man. The audience all know that verse. Thank you very much, Prof. In essence, it's if we can be impartial towards looking at the religions or what they say about gender, giving everybody its rights, his or her right, I think we're going to have a better communities. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to jump next to Barrister Comfort, who is a legal practitioner. And I would like to ask, just like Prof said, there have been, you mostly see or hear cases around gender violence or domestic violence and stuff. And then most times when you go, I've been involved in some of these cases whereby you go to the court, they're being reported, and then you go to the court and then they tell you, Anjan Yakara. You know, that is one of the most frustrating and depressing things you can hear when it comes to domestic violence or gender violence. So now, Barrister, what are the legal gaps in protecting women's rights where freedom of right, religion and beliefs conflicts are concerned, where tradition and religions are Where do they come in? Where do these legalities come in when it comes to protecting the rights of women, where freedom of religion and beliefs are concerned, from the legal standpoint of it?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the challenge is not necessarily that there are no laws that protect women's rights, and it's not also that customary laws or tradition does not necessarily protect women's rights. But the challenge is that balancing the two now, many times freedom of religion and beliefs and women's rights don't always go well. There is always, many times you have to trade one for one. Okay. Section 38 of our Constitution guarantees the right to religion, and also if you check other inherent sections like the right to privacy, right to freedom of assembly, right to expression, these are all inherent rights that speaks to this freedom of religion and belief. Even our Child's Rights Act, Section 7, it guarantees the right of children to be able to practice whatever religion of their choice, and not just even as an individual, even as a community. It also covers that you can even leave the religion. You also even have the option to propagate your religion. You also have the option to be an atheist. Like we know, Nigeria's constitution does not provide a straight religion. Nigeria is viewed as a secular state. Now, looking at the other side of it, our customary laws and tradition, they are also recognized by the law. Now, Nigeria's legal system, we practice a dual legal system, where on the one hand, we have the statutory law that is recognized. On the other hand, we have our customs and tradition. That is where we have things like Sharia law and customary courts. Both of them are recognized. But the challenge now is in balancing it. Sometimes you find out that the provisions for some of the customs contradict what is in the constitution or what is in these laws. Now, what would happen in that situation where there is this challenge or where there is this contradiction? The truth is that statutory law must always, when I say statutory law, I mean our constitution, our VAP Act, our Child's Rights Act, our international instruments, because also I didn't mention that Nigeria is a signatory to so many international instruments. We have the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, which we call CEDAW. We have the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. All of these things, Nigeria is a signatory to them. So many times, even if there's even a breach, a gap in our state laws, we can always revert to the international instruments that is provided. Now, looking at the two, like I've said, the challenge is in balancing the two of them and getting clarity in terms of implementing it. Many times, legal practitioners, we get stuck in this whole dilemma of balancing the two. And the reason is that sometimes our law enforcement, I'm sorry, ma, they are also, I don't want to say perpetrators, but sometimes they are reluctant to also enforce. Once it has to do with religion, you always find out that they always keep their hands off. And it's because of its sensitivity. I understand it's a very sensitive thing. If today we say that maybe, for instance, a clergy rapes a child, and then maybe he is trying to justify it by some sort of teaching, or maybe a woman went to receive counseling from maybe a religious leader, and the religious leader does something. So it's always a challenge for women to come out to implement, because they feel doing so would take them to the back seat. It means them alienating themselves from enjoying those religious freedom. You understand? And then there's something we call the repugnancy test. In law generally, customs and traditions are not just accepted verbatim. Yes, our Evidence Act, as like I said, our legal framework recognizes customs and tradition, which is why we have 12 states practicing having Sharia law systems. But at the same time, they are not just accepted hook, line, and sinker. That's like for customs and tradition. There's something we call the repugnancy test. It's in the Evidence Act, Section 18.3. The repugnancy test is how that these customs and traditions will be admissible. And now it must pass these 3 levels of tests. First is that it must not be repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. Many times people ask, what does good conscience mean? What is natural justice? This is where the question gets tougher, because many times it is left at the discretion of the judge. And what is natural justice to a judge from Judge A may not be natural justice to Judge B. This is also a gap. And then the second test is also that of it must not be contra any statutory law. Now, no tradition should contradict the VAP Act, for instance, because the VAP Act is already there in place. So every custom should aligned to it. So the challenge is now that we always make those other customs dominate, and we don't always go to enforce. And then the last test is it must not be against public policy. So the repugnancy test is there for us to checkmate these customs and tradition, but we don't always implement it. So I think these are some of the gaps, but there are also many other gaps that is most visible in terms of practice. But as far as it relates to law, these are some of the gaps that we see.
Thank you, Barrister. Quite detailed. If I understand clearly, I think there's a conflict between all these laws, the customary, the statutory, and everything. Yeah, and then we also need to find a balance where we can have justice served according to the punishment, according to the crime. And well, Nigeria being a should I say a multipolar society, yeah, I think you people and so also the security agents need to come around and find balance to this part of the justice. Thank you very much, Barrister. Now, next to you, I have Dr. Caleb, the CAN chairman, state CAN chairman, and it's always, I think they receive, as much as the court receive, they also receive their own fair share of reports and of all this gender and domestic violence. So now, Doctor, what would you say is the role of religious leaders when it comes to advocating for legal protection for women's rights in our communities, from the religious standpoint of it?
Thank you very much. From the onset, I believe that it's just the grace and the mercy of God that has kept us. By his benevolence and by God's wisdom, he created the man a man, and he created the woman a woman. The woman has never and will never in any way be inferior to the man. I will always say, if God had wanted me to be a woman, I would have been a woman. But by his sheer wisdom, he made me a man, and I'm grateful. Severally, we had to intervene by creating the needed environment and needed teaching as religious leaders, so as to bring about the needed awareness on the part of our followers. Because just like I said earlier, some people had and some are still having the belief that the woman is only meant for the kitchen and for the other room. I said some, which is not supposed to be. The woman is a co-traveler to the man on the same boat, on the same ship, and they are meant to cohabit the habitation. Without the woman, life will be miserable and unbearable for the man. And without the woman, I'm not sure that man will have the real essence and meaning of life. Because I always say that any man who does not listen to the voice of his wife will always find himself regretting at the end of the day. Because as a religious person, we must leverage on the fact that God has given us a responsibility to teach what is right, using our platforms, using our pulpits, using our offices that God has given us, to ensure that the man understands that the woman is a co-creator by God and is meant for his own good and for his benefit even as we live. The man is supposed to, or as a religious leader, we are supposed to provide the needed protection so that they will never in any way be exploited, because exploiters are there, people who take advantage over the women are there. But we must make sure that this stops or this comes to an end. How? When somebody does right in the church, be he a man or a woman, he should be recognized and be rewarded. And if the religious leader, if the man does wrong by either taking advantage of the woman, beating the woman, denying her what is duly hers, he is penalized by the church board. Because what is right and what is wrong is wrong. And see, in the church today, any church without the woman, the beauty of worship is lost. Any church or place of worship without women, the essence of having the worship is not complete. I serve in a church, by the grace of God, I'm in my 24th year as a pastor. And for some years, I've been in CAN leadership, from the local government to where I am today. I will always advocate that women need to be heard, because they have so many things to teach us, the men. It's going to be a deception if the man ever thinks that he knows all and can do all. He cannot. The woman has her rightful place. We will listen to her, make her own positive contributions, learn from what she says, takes to corrections. What maybe previously we held and practiced thinking it is right, not knowing it is wrong. And we put them, see, today in the church, women are protected because they are given their rightful places to even lead in the church, to lead in the Christian association. Today in our association, we have the wing called the Women Wing of Christian Association. That's what we can. We have leadership responsibilities given them in the church setting. We have the head committees in the church. Even in some churches, we have women that are serving at the board level, where decisions are taken. If women are not represented in the board, we may not understand what their thinking is like. We may not understand what their feeling is like, and they will not be given the opportunity to make their own useful and valuable contribution for the progress of the church and for the progress of our religious system. That's why I believe that, I think the last time we spoke with the JNI, they've equally come up with the women wing. I think it is the Form 1, I think, where they're equally given opportunities to speak to, during their meetings, during their forums, because I don't know everything about the woman. But when we engage them and provide them with the platforms, and even in our traditional institutions, when we engage them and provide them their places, I tell us the truth that the church, religious organizations, and even our communities are bound to make progress because the critical stakeholders are engaged. And Dr. Beatrice will say, women are never a mistake in God's creation. They are never. They have their rightful place if we must make progress as human beings. Without the man, the woman is incomplete. Without the woman, the man's life, just like I said, turns miserable. Sometimes if they travel for a day or two, for me, I discovered that Gaskia Gidang, the house will not become sweet for me. No matter the trouble she gives me in the home or in the church, she is still very necessary and she's still an integral part of me.
Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Doctor, yes, thank you, Doctor. In essence, we complement one another. When it comes to growth and progress, we also complement one another. Everybody has a role to play. And it's evident that we've seen the contributions of women, particularly in fields of communal growth, community. I think that also encompasses the entire community. Thank you very much, Doctor. If I may, okay. Dr. Aisha, being a women's advocate, how would you say people like you, women's advocates, bridge the gap between cultural sensitivity and also the push for legal reforms for women?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have to go back to the drawing board in terms of education. there's a difference between education and enlightenment. We need to take that enlightenment down to the grassroots level. I think basically the policymakers in Nigeria are more concerned about education at the higher level. But what do they say? They say when you educate a woman, you have educated the entire world, nation. But at the same time, you also have to open her eyes to the fact that she wields a very strong power when it comes to changing the trajectory of things in the world, or should I say in Nigeria. So you have to enlighten the woman at the grassroots level that she can be an agent of change. Awareness to enlighten the woman at the grassroots level that she can be an agent of change. Awareness is very critical. How do you collaborate with the necessary stakeholders to ensure that women's voice are heard? Sometimes when they say women are given opportunities at a political level, because I've written a lot on women participation in politics. And I have, from my analysis and from my interview with few of the politicians that I have interviewed, you see women given positions, welfare officers, women leaders. And when meetings are being held, at that table where decisions are being taken, where are they? They are behind, waiting to serve food. They are concerned about, Rankade, have you eaten? Where are the souvenirs? Bring the souvenirs. So decisions about them are taken behind their back. So how can their voices be heard? But they will tell you that after all, we have given you positions. So you see that women need to understand that we need to take charge. It's not about being, there's a saying that says when a woman talks, when a woman is being firm or assertive, they say she's what? Aggressive. But if it's the man that is being, they will know he's not being aggressive, or he's just being firm. The difference is that the body that is taking that decision, the body is that of a woman. So if it's the body of a woman, she's aggressive. But if it's the body of a man, he's what? He's firm. He's assertive. So the stereotype is already there. The legal system is also not helping matters, especially when it comes to cultures and religion. And the misinterpretation about the religion is so numerous. And even the hadith, who if you look at one of the propounders or the person that translated a lot of hadith is what? Nana Aisha. And she's a girl or a female. As a young academic in the academic arena dominated by male, you have to stand firm. And how do you stand firm? Before they can listen to you, when you open your mouth and talk. But they first of all look at it that and how do you stand firm? Before they can listen to you, when you open your mouth and talk. But they first of all look at it that I am a chichi. But when you stand, and I stand in front of the class and talk, it's when they hear you talk, that's when they now keep quiet and say, oh, okay, actually she has something to say. So as a woman, you need to do double. You need to go the extra mile because the stereotype the society has already placed you at a disadvantage. So you have to go the extra mile, seek for knowledge, even if you take it to the wall of China. Seek for that knowledge, ensure that you know what you're doing, you know what you're saying, so that when you're demanding for change or you're demanding for your rights, you are actually backed by what? By law. Nobody will tell you that you don't know what you're saying. So as women, especially in the local, rural areas, you are the agents. Because local government, I always say that the government is getting it wrong when it comes to that. Because at the local level, that is where governance is taking place. It is the bedrock of development. And that is where the women are. When it comes to campaigning, who do they call on? Who can go into those houses and campaign for them? So if you know what you're doing, if you know your rights, and you come up with somebody that you know can deliver, you can rally around and we can be the change that you want to see in the world. But you do not come out and say, I'm a child. Before you know it, everything goes behind your back. So I think that the policies in Nigeria as well, because we are not understanding what policy means. It means that you are addressing the problem of the society. It is the reaction of the government to a problem or a perceived problem. So the women are the key agents in the environment. And if a policy is to succeed, the environment has to accept that policy. If the environment does not accept the policy, then that policy is already dead on arrival. And who are over 50% of the population are women. So if women are also part of those policies that are being made, believe me, the development that we are agitating for, the sustainable peace and development that we are agitating for is just around the corner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aisha. Dr. Aisha made us understand that every one of us has a voice and you can also make a difference. So I'm also adding my voice to that. Everybody has a voice and can also make a difference. Now to, yes, my sister, Taide Leo. You've been in the civil society space for a while, and you people are considered the bridge here between the government, security agencies, and other establishments. Now, how can the CSOs, foster collaboration between government, religious institutions, and women's groups to strengthen the legal protections for women?
Okay, thank you so much for that.
I think you have to speak louder.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, the moderator. It's a pleasure to be here and to be talking from the standpoint of the CSO. So basically, for the CSO standpoint, we're largely known to be peacemakers. We're known to be the neutral mediators within the government and even the common man. So why I'm saying this basically is the CSO stands as one who complements the activity of the government. CSOs receive funding, they have the knowledge, they have the opportunity to be able to receive grants on behalf of the local community to implement projects across different divides. So why I'm actually also emphasizing this is because the CSO also has that rare privilege to be able to build capacity of local partners. We have the opportunity to build capacity of the common man. We see gaps, we carry out assessments, we build capacity, we find leveraging environment, friendly environment that brings two common grounds together, to bring friendly environment that brings two common grounds together, to bring peaceful coexistence as it pertains to FOB. So while I'm going to be reiterating and talking about FOB, because that's the essence of our discussion today, the CSOs have that responsibility of building capacity. So one of which we do is by creating sensitizations. We've talked about legal frameworks, we've talked about policies that exist. It's also the role of the CSO now to build opportunities for people to be aware. We've been hammering of the FOB laws. Those laws exist. Do people know about them? The government can do little. The government have the capacity to do even much more. But it is the role of the CSO to also help the citizens to understand the existence of these laws. What are these laws? Thankfully, CAFOD, under the Jisra project, along other consortium partners and the local partners, is putting together what we call the FOB laws, freedom of religion and belief laws. So we're trying to put this document in a very simplified mode that is easy to read. We're also going to be translating these laws in Hausa language, which is